host of The Bachelor is a guy named Chris Harrison. I learned this week. And there was I think something like the first season where there was a black bachelor.
This is the first season where it's a black bachelor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so race is top of mind for people. And there was a contestant who made it towards the end who was a woman. And there was photos of her at an Old South party in college, which I believe means that it was housed at an like what used to be a plantation. And they wore Old South style clothes and drank. And I don't think that there was any reenactments of slavery, as to my knowledge. And then in addition to that, there were a handful of other accusations, like she culturally appropriated one Halloween and stood next to a guy in a photo who was a black guy who was dressed as a slave. And like that this is, she was then under fire. And then the host said, hey, let's have some grace. And he said a handful of interesting things that we can jump off of. One is, okay, this is wrong in 2021, but was it wrong in 2018? Interesting question about moral relativism, which we can dive into. She was young, she was dumb, was 18. And anyway, what happened is somewhere behind the scenes, he lost the job, maybe stepped down, and apologized and said he was wrong, and those statements effectively perpetuated racism. Mm-hmm. So without getting into the specifics of him, her, there's a handful of, I think, interesting questions, which is like...
Yeah, because I didn't watch the full interview, honestly. So I can't say if he said something inappropriate or not, because I didn't watch everything he said.
Sure.
So maybe he snuck in something crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I read some articles that summarized what he said.
Yeah.
But maybe he said some crazy shit that I didn't see.
This is why I like philosophy more than
so this isn't about him.
Litigation.
This is about questions around
our
understanding of some of the topics being raised.
Yes. So there's a handful of questions. They all tie together. So how do we know, well, what makes something wrong is, I guess, the first question that this sort of does. So the perspective of the woman, the host opposite him that was kind of his foil in this, I think her name is Rachel Lindsay, was that he says, was this wrong in 2018 or is it wrong in 2021? And she says it was always wrong to do this. And the idea being that her perspective is that slavery existed as an institution in America. It occurred in the South. It occurred on plantations in the South, and that to have a party at that place which makes light or celebrates the South is to celebrate the subjugation of black people, which makes black people upset, which makes it bad. And I actually think there's a handful of jumps in there that I don't follow necessarily that seem to construct the view that it's wrong. So the first one is that moments in history are tied to things that happened in that. So like, Germany in the 40s is the Holocaust, or the South pre-Civil War is slavery. And what we were just talking about last night is like, so when a kid dresses up like a pirate,
oh, dude,
what is he doing?
I have such a long list of costumes. I was thinking about this. If we want the rule to be that you cannot dress up as anything from history. That's our 2021 rule.
It's not history. It's where in a surrounding that. And here's the other thing.
Go ahead. Say what you're going to say.
I'm trying to
go ahead.
Okay. It's not anything in history. It's at a time in history where something really bad was happening.
That's everything in history.
Okay.
That's everything in history.
Yeah.
You go ahead with that caveat. So no, seriously though. So like, we can have a rule saying, okay, in 2021 going forward, we've all decided we're banning historical costumes. We get together and we know if you dress up as anything in history starting in 2021, you get canceled. But if it's that you dressed up as something in the past, like Vikings, massive rapists, pirates, slave traders and rapists, Egyptian pharaohs, Jasmine and Aladdin, they had slaves. The sultans had slaves.
Well, Jasmine and Aladdin never really existed. They were in Agrabah, which I don't...
Slaves, bro. Almost positive.
Okay, probably in most places in human history.
Spartans from 300, rape, murder, slavery. So,
the Greeks that did have slaves, I believe. Certainly the Romans. We dress up as gladiators. Do you know what a gladiator is?
It's a slave.
It's a slave who we gathered around and cheered while they murdered each other. I mean, and so if you say that your favorite movie is Gladiator,
it's pro-slavery.
Yeah, and because and who says if the tone of Gladiator is sufficiently negative towards the practice of slavery, or if it glorifies?
Well, I'm just saying in terms of costumes. If we're gonna go, if the rule is you can't dress up in a time period or as a person that was participating in a time period where atrocities occurred, don't dress up as anything from any time in history. Limit yourself to Mario and Luigi. You know what I mean? Because I think people maybe don't realize that every historical costume can be tied to atrocity, slavery, murder, rape, conquest.
Well, Mario and Luigi, I mean, if I also perpetuates the idea that princesses need saving, that women are incapable of protecting themselves as
Sure,
they
if
get.
you dress up as a priest and I was molested as a priest as a kid, maybe your costume gives me PTSD.
Now, let me say, so what you're now adding the second layer, which is postmodernists, I think, would accurately say that, look, there's not one view of history. There are stories that we tell about history. So one person says, like, look, the Catholic Church has a long history. They built some stuff. They started some wars. They defended some people. They gave people hope. Like they and some priests molested some kids, and some priests donated all their time and money to charity.
To me, priest costume, molestation.
Exactly. So here's the question: who gets to say? And we act like it's
That's
obvious.
not actually how I feel for the record. I'm just pointing out an argument.
So we have acted, I think, sort of culturally around this issue of the South as if the South is singularly defined as slavery because it was so much. But I would suggest the postmodernist view that there's a lot of stories that one can tell about the South. Certainly one of them is that, but there is no right interpretation here. So what we have
or I guess I'm just saying is you can just apply this to other things. You could take this and paint almost any costume with it. It would be tough to find one that's not.
Yes. So what you accurately, I think, have said is that this actually isn't about the truth of history because there is no truth of history. There are perspectives on history, and maybe we agree on the base level facts, but not on what is predominant in a society or what it says.
Yeah.
So
and
then,
by the way, we can have that rule if we want to. Like, you just got to dress up as Superman going forward. But anyone who's ever dressed up as anything from any past history would be canceled using this rule.
well, furthermore, it's also guilt by association because she stood next to someone. This is one that I don't even want to get deep into. If you stand next to someone in a picture, that to me is just so boring. Throw it out. I don't care. Like,
well, we talked about this though. When you're canceling someone, the more instances you can point to, the stronger the case. So, you know, when someone's canceling Brian Cowan, he was accused of date raping someone. That's a harsh
serious allegation.
He was accused of saying something, and then he was accused of, I forget what else. But they certainly, even if you think all three behaviors were bad, they aren't all equal. They aren't all date raping someone. Mm-hmm. But when you're writing the article, it's just easier to say there have been 4 accusations
of sexual misconduct. And then the first one is the date rape.
So for this girl, it's similar. It's like there's a history of racist action. One is going to a plantation party. One is standing next to a black man who's decided to dress up like a slave for their own reasons.
And the other, and then her high school friends or people at her high school said, the rumors. And those, this is something that I think it was Scott Adams who points out that, though many people have, and when you add to a list, things feel more credible. Like you just
glaze over.
Yes. Yeah. And you glaze over and you don't need to evaluate each piece of evidence on its own and just, I dismiss that. And you're left with 1 accusation or 2 accusations. So yeah, boring to me. The second thing that you've brought up is clearly there's something else going on here, which is who feels upset and offended, who, how many, when, and all of that sort of. Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.